His name was Arthur John Priest. He was a stoker, shoveling coal into the furnaces that powered the Great Ocean liners. He was not famous, not wealthy. He was a working man, about to have the most statistically impossible life in maritime history. In the early 20th century, Southampton was the center of the world's greatest maritime industry. The White Star Line and Cunard operated the largest, most luxurious ships ever built. Men like Arthur Priest were the invisible engine of this golden age, working in the bowels of the ship, shoveling coal in 120-degree heat, never seeing the luxury above them. Arthur had done this work for years. He was good at it, used to it. What he was not used to was what was about to happen. On April 10th, 1912, Arthur Priest boarded the RMS Titanic as a crew member, a stoker. You know what happened next. On April 14th, at 11:40 p.m., the Titanic struck an iceberg. In 2 hours and 40 minutes, the largest ship in the world sank to the bottom of the ocean. 1,517 people died. Arthur Priest was not one of them. He survived. One of only 710 people to make it off that ship alive. Most survivors never set foot on a large ocean vessel again. Arthur went back to work. 2 months after surviving the Titanic, Arthur Priest boarded another ship, the HMHS Asturias. He needed the work. His family needed the money. What happened next is either the most extraordinary coincidence or proof that some people are simply meant to survive. The Asturias suffered a collision at sea. Arthur Priest was on board. He survived again. Sinking number 2. ATHS Point Arthur Priest had survived to maritime disasters that killed thousands of people. Any reasonable person would have left the sea forever. Arthur Priest was not any reasonable person. He went back to work. And the sea, it seems, was not finished with him yet. The third sinking was about to happen, and it would be the most violent yet. By 1915, the world was at war. Arthur Priest, now serving on military hospital ships, was in the middle of one of the most dangerous stretches of ocean in the world. The waters around Britain patrolled by German U-boats. His ship, the RMS Alcantara, was a sheep sunk. Arthur Priest was pulled from the water, again, sinking number 3. At this point, Arthur Priest was becoming known among maritime workers with a mixture of admiration and genuine superstitious fear. Some men refused to sail with him. They believed he was cursed. Others believed he was the luckiest man alive. Arthur himself said nothing memorable about it. He signed on to the next ship. 1 year after the third sinking, Arthur Priest was serving aboard the SS Alcantara, a different ship, confusingly, with almost the same name. In February 1916, the Alcantara engaged a German-armed merchant raider, the SMS Grief, in the North Sea. Both ships sank each other in the engagement. Both crews abandoned ship. Arthur Priest entered the cold North Sea water for the 4th time. He was rescued. Again, he survived. Again, he was 28 years old. He had now survived for separate maritime disasters. The statistical probability of this was, and mathematicians have actually calculated this, essentially 0. Back in Southampton, Arthur Priest had acquired a nickname that followed him into every dockyard pub and every crew briefing room. They called him Violet, After the unsinkable Violet Jessup, the stewardess who had also survived multiple maritime disasters. Some accounts suggest he was called simply the Unsinkable, whatever his nickname. The reality was clear. This man had entered cold water after a catastrophic maritime disaster 4 times and walked away each time. And yet, he kept going back to sea. The question was not whether it would happen again. The question was when. 1917 was the peak of Germany's unrestricted submarine warfare campaign, the most dangerous period in the history of the North Atlantic. Ships were sinking every day. U-boats hunted in coordinated Wolf packs. The chance of surviving a transatlantic voyage was genuinely uncertain. Arthur Priest boarded a ship called the HM/HS Donegal. It was April 17, 1917. He had survived 4 sinkings. He was about to face his 5th. And this final one, would be different from everything that came before. The HM/HS Donegal was a hospital ship marked with red crosses, theoretically protected under the Geneva Convention from attack. The German U-boat UC-21 ignored this. At 8:35 in the morning, a torpedo struck the Donegal. The ship began to sink. Arthur Priest, who had now survived 4 previous maritime disasters, entered the water for the 5th time. This time, something was different. The water was exceptionally cold. The ship sank faster than previous vessels. Dozens of wounded patients and crew members did not make it. 40 people died. Arthur Priest survived. But those who knew him said he was not the same man who came out of the water after the Titanic. Something had changed. Arthur Priest survived the 5th sinking. He was rescued, treated, and eventually returned to Southampton. Contemporary accounts suggest he was significantly affected by his wartime maritime experiences, what we would today recognize as symptoms of post-traumatic stress. He returned to work on ships after the war because it was all he knew. But his extraordinary sequence of survivals was complete. He had sailed through the worst maritime disasters of the early 20th century. He had entered freezing ocean water 5 separate times. He had outlived thousands of his fellow crew members. He was, by any statistical measure, the most improbable survivor in maritime history. Let's put Arthur Priest's survival into actual numbers. The survival rate for the Titanic disaster was approximately 32%. For a crew member in the engine room, Arthur's position, it was significantly lower, closer to 20%. The probability of surviving 5 separate major maritime disasters, each with significant fatality rates multiplied together. It produces a number so small it essentially describes an event that should not happen. Mathematicians who have studied Arthur Priest's case have compared the probability to winning a major lottery multiple times. It did not happen by design. It did not happen by preparation. It femme things evolvent pas simply à peine. Arthur Priest died in 1937 at the age of approximately 49, not at sea, but in Southampton. He died in relative obscurity, without significant recognition, for a life story that should have been front-page news worldwide. His story is preserved primarily in maritime, historical records, in the accounts of other survivors, and in careful documentation. He did not write a memoir. He did not give famous speeches. He was a working man who went back to work after each disaster. His extraordinary story was not told as widely as it deserved during his lifetime, but it should be remembered.